Salvelinus fontinalis, the brook trout, a species of clear water, pristine locations, and incredible patterns. The brook trout was first scientifically described as Salmo fontinalis by the naturalist Samuel Latham Mitchell in 1814. With a vast historical range across northeastern North America, they quickly became an important food source, especially for early settlers that quickly began to populate the untouched lands. Brook trout up to 4 or 5 pounds weren't uncommon. But in the 1830s, with the start of the Industrial Revolution, the logging industry exploded and habitat degradation became a major threat to ecosystems across the continent. Factories and other air-polluting industries created acid rain which severely degraded water quality. Introduction of non-native salmonids and bass for recreational value only exacerbated the issue. Outcompeted, brook trout were either pushed into headwaters of streams or rivers and completely eliminated from watersheds. Unfortunately, even with the obvious decline from the brook trout, nothing was done by local or state governments. Conservation of brook trout was such a low priority as their value was deemed much lower than the newly introduced species. By the 1950s, brook trout were extirpated from over 90% of their historical range, with limited remnant populations only being found in high-altitude streams and ponds. In the Midwestern Great Lakes, namely Lake Superior, migratory brook trout called coasters underwent this same decline. They were once the most common game fish in the Great Lakes, but due to logging and the introduction of Pacific salmon species, their populations were quickly decimated and their range collapsed. Nowadays, conservation efforts along with stocking programs have been able to preserve the remaining populations along the coast of Lake Superior. Biologist James Jamieson from the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources has noticed a positive trend in coastal brook trout health in the Thunder Bay, Ontario area of Lake Superior, but he says this is not without notice to trending threats. Coastal brook trout populations have been doing very well here in Thunder Bay. Annual surveys show an uptick in catches by recreational anglers, and data from our own collection records support this. However, these surveys are conducted in the lake itself. In the fall, coastal brook trout migrate from the lake into feeder streams to spawn. The spawning run is triggered by water temperatures falling below 52 degrees and an increase in precipitation. Unfortunately, the trend over the past couple years is less rainfall and warmer temperatures later in the season. Low streams from less rain means that brook trout can't access their spawning habitat. Low water also means warmer temperatures, which the brook trout can't spawn in, and nor can the young survive in. Soon, it may get to a breaking point, and that's what we're worried about.
Almost 1,300 miles to the east lies the Quabbin Reservoir in western Massachusetts. Flowing out of the lake is the world-famous Swift River. In the fall, the river's resident brook trout complete a similar but different journey. Instead of running from the lake into the rivers, they run upstream towards the dam of the Quabbin, which acts as their final spawning point. Here, they pair up and mate over light patches of gravel called reds. This makes them easy to catch, so many anglers will find themselves targeting these special fish in the fall. Owen, a local, is one of them. While young, he has been fishing the Swift for many years, but most importantly, he understands the need for conservation.
Brook trout are probably one of my most favorite trout species out of all of them, just out of their sheer aggressiveness and beauty. Most of the fish are small, but it doesn't matter about the size of the fish, it's just the color on them that really makes them spark. Some of them have this dark back, and they have this yellow-blue sort of speckles all over their body, and they have this bright orange, yellowish belly with some awesome white fins. They're just a really insanely cool fish. I think the Swift needs to up their game on conservation for brook trout specifically. For one, this is our native fish from Massachusetts. We want to protect that, we don't want to lose it. We shouldn't prioritize the brown trout and rainbow trout that are stocked into this ecosystem and all of the ecosystems around the state. We should prioritize the brook trout. Unfortunately, the DCR in the state decided that there doesn't need to be a length limit on these native brook trout. I've seen various poachers below the Route 9 bridge where people just take so many small brook trout and even broodstock fish. When you take the broodstock fish out, or the spawning fish, that decreases the population significantly. So the population has kind of been slowly tapering off. They need to have more wildlife patrol down here, environmental policing, and just stop poachers from accessing the Swift in general. Hopefully the DCR in the state will be able to conserve these native brook trout and save them for future generations.